In this spooky video, we're going to be having a look at the brand new Playmates toys, Tales of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. This is the Monsters and Mutants Monster Hunter Raph. Grabbing the very spooky tape measure. It's not really spooky. We know that Raph is close to about 5 inches in height. For his accessory, he's got a really super cool kind of wooden stake crossbow. Now, granted, it doesn't really have a lot in the way of paint, but more than makes up for it with a super cool looking sculpt. I'd imagine this would be something that I would see Hugh Jackman wielding in the very poorly made Van Helsing, which we will never speak of again. Maybe a couple more times. One thing that's neat about it is that you can take the crossbow here, and it fits actually in both of his hands. Simply just plug it into the one hand, and then we just kind of rotate it around, and it plugs also into the other hand as well. And you can get Raph to hold the crossbow. What a super cool looking weapon for him fighting the vampires. And clearly this is what this monster hunter is doing. He's hunting them vampires. To compare him with the other Monster Hunter figure that we looked at, we'll just reach off camera, and there's Monster Hunter Leo. Now I'm trying to figure out, based on this, who's hunting what. Clearly Raph is hunting vampires, which we will look at other little clues in a minute. I'm wondering what Leonardo here is actually hunting. Perhaps it's werewolves, perhaps it's just monsters in general. He doesn't like to really isolate himself to one category of monsters. He basically just runs the gambit for hunting monsters. Raph, on the other hand, though, seems very specific to hunting vampires. Let me just show you exactly what I mean by that. We'll take Leonardo off camera, and we'll just remove the... There we go. One thing I love is his trench coat. He's got one of those old world sort of vintage trench coats that have the very broad collar and very long draping nature of the jacket itself. Much like Leo, it's a very soft plastic. And let me just peel this away so you can see some other little indications that perhaps he's fighting the undead, the vampire species. It looks like a couple of cloves of garlic painted in white. And it looks like he's got a couple of smaller spikes wrapped on his leg. The body, it looks like, probably could have been reused from a previous Raph figure, and then simply they've just added a new sculpted belt. Of course, the little leg belt here as well. And, of course, the very large trench coat. Unlike Leo, though, the hat that's on Raphael is not removable. You can't take it off. It's molded to his head. But I really love the old world look that Raph's got going on here. He kind of also reminds me, if you didn't have him necessarily displayed with the crossbow, it almost looks like something that could be almost like a Watson Raphael if you had like a Sherlock Holmes theme. Some cool details though on the jacket itself, where you got the little buttons on the sides and a little belt strap across the back there. I love that. It's got the seam cut, the cut up the middle of the jacket, and it's got a nice flow to it. One thing also it doesn't do too, it doesn't limit posability. So if you want to have ka-chow Raphael kicking maybe a vampire, you can do that very easily actually, and the jacket stays out of the way. Speaking of posability, the head is on a ball joint, so despite the fact that it looks like it really wouldn't have much in the way of posability, you can still actually rock the head up and down, and you can rotate the head all the way around. The shoulders hinge out via a universal joint, not restricted at all. You'll notice too that everything on, even like the top collar portion of the jacket, is a soft plastic, so it doesn't limit any sort of posability. The arms hinge outward. You've got, of course, the bend in the forearm, and that rotates all the way around as well. And you got a rotation, the same thing going in the hands. And you can see that the hands are taped up. The lower torso, universal joints on the legs, forward and out. It does also have a bend at the knee, which also allows the lower leg to rotate. And like Leonardo, Raphael also has peg holes on the undersides of his feet. I have to admit, it's a little strange not to see Raphael with his pair of Sai, his weapons of choice. However, I do think the wooden stake shooting crossbow is an excellent touch, especially for Raphael, who clearly is fighting vampires. I thought Leo had a pretty neat looking look to him, but I think my favorite has to be Raphael here. I love the jacket that he's sporting, that very small hat that he's also sporting on top of his head. And even though it doesn't come with the Sai, I'm perfectly fine with that. A really super cool figure and fun release from the folks over at Playmates Toys. Now, we just recently had a look at Monster Hunter Leo, and now we just recently had a look at Monster Hunter Raph. Now we're going to have a look at some of the monsters that I could imagine these two brothers are hunting down. So stay tuned for those in future videos. And of course, if you haven't had a chance yet to subscribe to this channel, make sure you hit that little subscribe button down below. You won't miss a beat when it comes to future videos. And stay tuned, because much more terrorific, spookerific reviews are happening during the month of Spotober, which is happening right now. As always, guys, thanks for watching as you always do. I'll see you next time.